Hello there. It's a bit of a peculiar view for this one. I've got a whole load of things to share with you this morning, and it's all to do with one subject. So if people ask me what they can do for their health that's going to make the biggest difference of all, I go automatically to considering breath work, drinking good quality water, preferably that you collect yourself from a spring. I think of body work, and these are like the basics. And then if you want to develop yourself as a person, I think about spiritual practice, something that nourishes you, doing it on a regular basis, building up your unbending intent. I think about all those things. And then when it comes to being a bit more in terms of the physical realms, then I just want to talk to you about honey. So that's the title of this one. This one is honey. It's all about honey, and I've got some right here. And this is some honey which I was able to obtain. And this is really one of the most important things about honey, is where do you get it from and how do you get it? And there's a whole story attached to this. So I'm just taking a sniff of this wonderful honey. And I was literally cycling from where I live to Boltonsborough, south of Glastonbury, and I just happened to notice a sign outside the house, and it said honey, and that's all I needed to know, just that. So my suggestion for you is to invest in honey. People talk about preparing for what's to come. One of the best things you can do is get a decent store of honey in, and this will be for yourself and for all those people you might be able to help in the coming times ahead. So strongly recommended. So I live in Somerset, so Somerset honey from a local beekeeping couple who I found totally randomly just going for a cycle ride. And this is a good time of year to be looking for honey. August, September, it's a great time to be on the search. So I'm just going to allow this one to unfold the way it does. So I have been lent this book, my daughter lent it to me, and it's called Herbal Antibiotics, Natural Alternatives for Treating Drug-Resistant Bacteria. It's a very medical book, and it's obviously written by a medical practitioner. And I was aware of certain plants, so I think of ashwagandha, there's others I could mention. But here we are, and there's a whole section on honey, and that was really quite something for me to get my head around. I know how good honey is, but there is just so much more that I didn't fully appreciate. And so I want to cut to the chase with it all. If you have got a store of honey where you live, you have got a medicine of inestimable value. I found myself working with plant medicines over a lot of years now, that to work with plant medicines, and where there's an appropriate point to incorporate honey, that acts as a bridge. So from a shaman's perspective, what honey does, honey acts as a bridge between any medicine and you, or the person who is the one you're helping, your client. So in that very simple sense, honey is of extraordinary value. Anything that is a bridge between you and the healing, that's something you want to go for. So I'm just going to tell you I'm going to read a little bit about this book. So here it is, called Stephen Howard Booner. I strongly recommend this book. It's been completely revised, expanded and updated in the second edition, and it needed to be done because so many changes are taking place. So here we go. Any organic wildflower honey can be used effectively in the treatment of antibiotic resistant skin and wound infections. So here is it. Number one, any wound anywhere that is refusing to heal through the other methods that have been used, that is when you say, stop, honey, let me work out how to get the honey, onto that wound. Let me work out a way to keep the honey on the wound so it's not going to spread, because obviously one of the main issues about honey is it gets everywhere, doesn't it, if you're not careful. You don't want the honey to be where you don't want it to be. So you need to have a dressing, you need to put the honey on the wound, cover it with the dressing and make sure it doesn't leak. This is just real ground basic stuff. And once you've done that, you have got one of the most powerful treatments on the planet. There is really nothing to touch honey for intractable wounds, wounds that won't heal with any other means. This is what you do, you go for the honey. And I want to take it further than this book, because I'm very keenly aware I do read very widely. And I remember particularly reading about a man who found himself in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and he had some very unfortunate encounters with some very violent people, and 2 of his fingers were removed in an incident, and he's walking around with his hand with these 2 stumps, and he knows that the only thing he's got to do is to find somewhere where there is old honey. Honey that's more than a year old somehow has an even greater potency and capabilities for healing wounds. All wounds, anywhere. It really is that simple. So let's just dip into this book. Wildflower honey, any, effectively in the treatment of antibiotic resistant skin and wound infections. Large-scale agricultural honeys and single plant honeys are less potent than honeys which are from a whole mixture of wildflowers. And what I noticed when I went to pick up this honey, gosh, is it only 8 days ago? Yes, it only 8 days ago. And I'd actually arrived to pick it up. It had been harvested the day before I arrived. And I took a sniff and I thought, wow, that's incredible. And I'd cycled quite a way, actually. I'd cycled about 10 miles that day already. And I was given a little bit to taste, and I was going to cycle home, get the car, come over and buy a substantial amount of this honey, because I could tell by the smell and the appearance it was exceptional. But here's the point, I literally had less than 1/4 teaspoon of honey and I just flew back on the bike. I was so totally energized by the effect of this honey it was having on an energetic level, never mind physical level. Right, I'm so excited, it's hard for me to keep my focus, so I do apologize about that. Now there's one exception to the rule about you want the greatest diversity possible. When I spoke to the producers, the people, the carers of these bees, because they live in a village, there are so many flowers, such a profusion of wild and garden flowers, and this means that the potency is off the charts. It really is. So the only exception to this is Manuka honey from New Zealand, which is produced primarily from the flowers of a plant called Leptospermum scuparium, and that is very, very potent, and it is also very, very expensive indeed. So that's something to share with you. And then the other thing to share with you is that since this book was originally written, the guy says, well, actually the UK NHS system has embraced honey because they just couldn't ignore the evidence. There is so much scientific support of the efficaciousness, the use and the medicinal power of honey, that they actually got pharmaceuticals companies to produce a pharmaceutical honey which is called Medi honey, and of course it's far more expensive than local honey and even more expensive than the Manuka honey. And that is the only honey which is used in the NHS in the UK at the moment. There's a brand which is used in Holland, the Netherlands, and all very expensive. And the thing is, it works. This is why people are so keen on it. However, I want to take it further, which is the reason why I'd recommend that you have honey in your home is because apart from its ability to treat and heal wounds, it's got something else, which is it is the most wonderful medicine for the immune system. Now, when I think about immune system, over the years I would advise people all of the red foods that I consume, the beetroot, the pomegranate, the red wine that I used to make my beef casseroles, the red colour, resveratrol, fantastic for boosting the immune system. But what I want to do, I want to come up with one thing that you can add to your life. Like years ago when I said, well, the one thing you could do to add to your life would be good water. Well, this is really the second time I've ever come out and said, right, this is the next thing. Apart from your good water, which ideally you get yourself, the next thing is honey. And the way you do it is you go bimbling around your area. Now, I can speak for the UK. There is nowhere in the UK that doesn't have beekeepers. It's a simple fact. You get out of the cities and you'll find beekeepers. To be honest, these days you'll even find beekeepers in cities on top of tower blocks. In other words, pretty much everywhere you will find beekeepers. And they're not the kind of people that push themselves forward and have a very large presence on social media, so you might not be able to find them in that way. But if you just go around, literally randomly travel around and look for signs, and the other thing you can do is you can go online and look for local beekeepers associations. There are beekeepers associations all over the UK. I can't speak for other countries, but certainly here it's just, they're everywhere, because the beekeepers share with each other the best methods. There are issues, of course. The whole world bee population is under threat and under attack, and has been for many decades with pesticides. That's a complete no-brainer. You drench the world in pesticides, it's going to impact the bee population, and that will be why there's a lot of really terrible diseases of bees these days, including Varroa, for example. Those people know about such things. But let me drag it to the subject. I do apologise. The main thing is what I'm suggesting to you is use your unbending intent. Find sources of supply for honey, and this is the way you start to bite. You bite in jars. I've got a huge tub which I'm going to show you a little bit later at the end of the film, and that's what I did. I went and bought 40 pounds in a huge white plastic tub. And what I'm suggesting is, I'm talking about investment. People talk about paying for difficult times ahead. They talk about investing in gold, investing in silver. Well, one of the best golds you can invest in is the liquid gold of honey. So the reason why this is so important is because our immune systems are being attacked from all sides by the mainstream culture. I put it simply that way. So many toxins out there. There are so many poisons. All junk food. I've been on about it for so many years. Food from a takeaway where the oil has been heated and reheated and reheated until it's just full of free radicals, which is basically the bad bullies, thugs just wanting to beat the shit out of your body. All of these things can be addressed and dealt with. And then let's remember about something that happened in 2020. And it's been going on ever since. People have been having these invitations to be taking experimental substances, and all sorts of problems seem to be coming to light, and people seem to be dying and all the rest of it. And well, the best thing you can do is to come up with something that every member of the family is going to go, oh wow, that is so delicious. I can't honestly say that about some of the herbs that I recommend people to take, but this, all children know it, absolutely delicious. So you won't have any problems in helping your children to build up their immune systems and make themselves strong again. And there's differences of opinion about what people have been taking in the last year or so. And so people think you're utterly doomed, and other people think, well, actually, maybe you're not. Well, I would say, never mind about any of people's opinions. Just get a stack of decent quality honey in the house. And if you manage to find some old honey that's been knocking around in a shop, then for goodness sake, get yourself a jar of that, and you can use that for intractable wounds. So there's so much. So for wounds used internally for immune stimulation, there was developing your immune system, overall health improvement. Let me just say that again. Overall health improvement, whatever you've got going on with your health income in terms of a problem, health problem, whatever it is, overall health improvement. Just like water, remember the good quality water, automatic overall health improvement. Same with honey. And treatment of colds, flus and respiratory infections. And it's not down in this book, but I'm going to tell you another one, incredibly important. Having done my oral health summit some years ago, so many horrendous problems in health are caused by people having, I could put it simply, a dirty mouth, a mouth which has got low-grade infections, gingivitis, gum disease, tooth decay, all of these things. I know it's hard to believe. Yeah, this stuff. Now, this is where I've really got to lay it on the line with you. Go to a supermarket or go anywhere and buy honey which has been pasteurized or heat treated. Then you've got something which is harmful. It's actually going to harm your mouth because it's basically had all of the goodness taken out of it. This is alive. And the other thing about this, if you look at it, it's a bit cloudy. You can't see through it completely. If the honey that you are wanting to get is a completely clear product, you look at it, you can see all the way through. Put it back on the shelf and don't buy it, because it means it's been filtered. All the really good stuff, the wax particles, the pollen, all the things that had extra healing power have been sieved out. So you don't want the honey where the good stuff's been sieved out. You don't want the honey where the good stuff's been had it killed out by heating. You want to get, and then that's the other thing. Rather than giving the money to the multinational conglomerates, you're giving the money to the local producer, cutting out the middleman, going straight to the person. You get the best deals. And when I buy it in a tub, I don't have to give the beekeeper the onerous job of putting it all into 40 or 50 jars, which have all got to be paid for. I cut all that expense out and they give me a plastic tub. Return it the following year. So much better. So to the teeth and to the mouth. If you've got gum infection, if you've got problems with teeth problems, one of the best things you can do is you can take a spoonful of honey and savour the flavour, let it linger in the mouth. And don't rush to brush your teeth. Leave it in there because it's a medicine. Before you go to bed at night, sure, give your teeth a normal clean. And while we're on the subject, we need to consider also bee pollen as a powerful medicine, and also propolis. So I use propolis tincture with coconut oil, and that's the last experience my teeth get of a night. So powerful. So we're looking at the actions of honey now. It's anti-allergenic. In other words, it's good against allergies. It's anti-anemic. Wow, how about that? It's anti-carcinogenic. That's right. Anti-cancer. Antifungal. Extraordinary. If you've got a really recurrent or resistant fungal infection, athlete's foot comes to mind, honey on a dressing. Antifungal. Anti-inflammatory. Well, we all know that it's pretty much been concluded that all illness is to do with an inflammation, an inflammatory response. So by having honey, we're going to be calming things down. Anti-inflammatory, that's putting us into the health vibe straight away. Antiviral. Well, I don't even want to get started as a microbiologist about what's been going on for the last couple of years, but even if you were to believe the conventional narrative, hook, line and sinker, if you discover that raw honey is antiviral, it's a no-brainer. Expectorant. In other words, all chest infections are going to be healed by it. An immune stimulant, yeah, we mentioned that already, a laxative and an overall tonic. Well, how about that? Healing for wounds, moist wounds, peptic ulcers, bacterial gastroenteritis, reduces plaque in the mouth, good for gingivitis, which is gum infections, facilitates debridement, don't even know what that means, soothes inflamed tissues, acts as a wound barrier and stimulates skin and muscle regeneration. regeneration after a serious wound. Think about that. And then it's got its activity, and there's a list. There's literally a list of 3 lines of all the different pathogenic bacteria and other microbes this is active against. I'm just going to read a few out at random. Aspergillus niger, that's a fungus. Bacillus stereothermophilus, that's a bacterium. Candida species, they're yeast. E. coli, very well known. 25 strains of E. coli it's active against. Enterococcus fecalis, these are more bacteria, particularly associated with gut conditions. Shigella dysenteriae, well, that's a bit of a giveaway. That's obviously a dysentery bacteria. Klebsiella oxytoca, Klebsiella pneumonia. How many people of advanced age die of pneumonia? A primary killer these days. Micrococcus luteus, Mycobacterium species, that's tuberculosis we're talking about here, which actually has killed far more people than the thing that people have been histrionic about over the last couple of years. We're talking about millions dying worldwide from tuberculosis. Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which I just have to mention because it's a bacterium I studied when I did my microbiology degree. I spent 6 months studying that particular bacterium. Salmonella, well, we're very familiar about them. So the last one I want to mention is Staphylococcus aureus. 58 isolates and all MRSA strains were tested, and honey was found to be effective against the whole darned lot of them. MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. This book goes into a great deal of fascinating information to do with conventional antibiotics. The reason why conventional antibiotics don't work so well and you get the resistance is because if ever you isolate something and you have it in its pure state, this is like anti-nature. You get a purified substance called heroin that's been derived from opium poppies, infinitely more dangerous. You get pure sugar, which has been extracted from plants which contain a whole variety of sugars and carbohydrates, seriously harmful for the body. This is a pattern we notice over and over and over again. And honey is also highly effective against bacterial biofilms, and if you don't know what they are, you might want to go and look them up for yourself. So you can see what a big blast this book has been for me to study. Side effects and contraindications. External use, none. Okay, well, how many things from the doctor can you get from prescription? You can say there are no side effects whatsoever. You look at all the antibiotics which are available on prescription, what's their situation with side effects? It's pretty darn scary, to be quite honest. Side effects with honey, contraindications, external use, none. Internal use, there is a possibility of mild to severe anaphylactic shock in rare cases for those who are allergic to bee stings. So if you've ever had your body stung all over by bees and you've developed a full-blown allergic reaction, then you might need to be really careful about your use of honey. And everybody else, absolutely fine. So, direct applications for burns. Now, that's something we haven't mentioned. Burns, first, second, and even third degree burns, direct application, full strength honey onto the burn, covered by a sterile bandage, changed once or twice a day. For ulcerations, bed stores which are so deep they even penetrate down to the bone. Same story. Direct application, full strength, sterile bandage, changed once or twice daily. Infected wounds, as before. Wounds, as before. Impetigo, dilute the honey enough to use as a wash and apply it twice daily. For seborrheic dermatitis, same thing as for impetigo. As internal use, as a preventative, you would take 1 tablespoon as it is, or in tea 3 times daily. But I'll tell you what, I like my honey. I don't have that much, so that's pretty impressive. For acute conditions, 1 tablespoon each hour or 1 tablespoon in tea 6 to 10 times daily for acute conditions. Best colds and flu tea, 2 tablespoons of ginger juice, of a quarter of a lime, pinch of cayenne pepper, tablespoon of honey, hot water. Colds and flu tea, in other words, for all respiratory ailments which have been classified to be viral, or even what we call secondary infections, which is when the bacteria get in there. So, I mean, I could go on, but I just want to take a moment now, and I want to mention something else, which is that when you look what's going on in the world today, there are a lot of developments which can cause people to feel pretty disturbed, and this is to such an extent that the vast majority of people can't even bear to look at or consider any of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a couple of links in the description, which, if you're not familiar with what's going on at the moment, we're quite aware. There's a guy called Daily Hot. He's a Chinese guy, young guy, based in India, and he's completely changed the content of his channel over very recent times. It used to be about foods and other such things, and it's now about what's going on in Holland and what's going on with the Dutch farmers and the Swiss farmers and the German farmers and the Italian farmers and farmers in other countries which I can't speak about because he's not specifically mentioned them. There's a lot of farmers out there that are very angry and are not happy to allow their businesses and their livelihoods and their passions taken away by the administrative stroke of the pens of some bureaucrat somewhere, or more likely the tapping of keys, making things illegal, doing this, doing that. They're not having it, and they're out there, and they are making it very clear that if land is taken out of agricultural use, there's a very obvious result, and it's a no-brainer. Farmers produce less food for human beings to eat. It really is that simple, and that stark and that dramatic. So that's something to consider. And I also want to mention someone called David Avocado Wolfe. He's a very interesting person indeed, and he did an interview with someone only a few days ago. This is who's called Health Ranger, who I've never heard of. I've heard of David Avocado Wolfe for many years. He's had a strong internet presence, putting up his memes on Facebook for a long time, which is all about, come on guys, if you eat crap, if you eat junk, then what's that going to do to you? If you allow yourself to be poisoned by all sorts of toxic substances, what's that going to do for you? And then what's been going on in the last couple of years, he's had a lot to say about that as well. So I'm not going to say any more about that, because either you already know it, or you're sufficiently intrigued to want to go and have a look at the links I'm going to put in the description. So let me put it this way. It's reached a point where there are a lot of changes going on in the world, and what's going on in the United States, there's an extraordinary polarization going on between different states, and it's to do with, well, it seems to be partly to do with the politics. You've got two parties in America, and certain states have become very much dominated by one party. Other states are dominated by the other party. And over the last few years, what's been happening is there's been population movement. People are leaving certain states in droves because the conditions there are unsuitable, and they're going to live in different states. Yeah, there's so much going on out there. There really is. So my suggestion to you is to prepare yourself for what's to come in whatever way you feel is appropriate that you're capable of organising for yourself. And I do think it's a really good idea to have a store of water, because you never know, do you? And it's a really good idea to have a store of food. Same reasoning. In terms of keeping yourself healthy, your children healthy, your families and your friends and all the people that you might be called upon to help in coming times, get yourself a really good store. So that's it. I could share more from that book, but I'm not going to, because I've shared enough. But I just want to give you a little look at this, and I'm rather shocked at how long this film's gone on for, so apologies for that. So here we go. Let's take this device off the tripod, and there you are. Now, you've only got to look at that to know it's alive. You've only got to inhale the aroma and you know this is full of power, of potency. And I just give a huge thank to all the bees on planet Earth for being so generous with this wonderful healing product, which has saved the lives of who knows how many people throughout the entire recorded history of human beings, discovering honey, managing to capture some of it and heal their ills. So thank you very much. All the love to you.